Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Roach Crossing Weekly General Live Stream, March 3rd, 2022. I remembered to do the thing that I said I was going to do where when I get the email for the stream starting, I just read off that in the email box so I remember what the name is. Hi, we've got Hi Invertebrate Dude, TJ, and Tristan. Fascinating. Good to see both of you. Another one of these, the two Tristans. I know. It's bizarre actually. That this, apparently, bug keeping attracts a lot of Tristans for some reason. And Joshua, good to see you too. Good to see the gang is almost all here. This, as I say every month or every week, the last month, may be a shorter live stream. I don't know. We'll see when I start talking if I can't stop or not. But it's been one of those weeks where I've had a lot of caffeine. I've been busy doing spring cleaning in the house. I've been busy getting the last of stuff in the bug room put away. Things that have hello exotic wilderness. Things that have taken several months to get into permanent enclosures, either due to enclosure availability, due to space, due to supplies, due to my brain. So it's nice. Will and I were actually kind of hard pressed yesterday to find something that needed to be. We haven't had to ship either because I've been waiting for the heat packs to come in. They will be in very soon, so that's the good news. And of course, I have set the ship date to March 15th, so I've got a bunch of stuff going out then. Could be upwards of 30-ish orders, and then might done it with a couple, but I might start pushing some orders to the following week, which is actually going to be kind of tricky for me because that weekend, March 17th to Sunday the 20th, I'm just saying 21st to be safe. Yes, TJ, yes, your package should go out then. I need a refresher on what to send. If you actually, this would be very helpful. If you could send an email to the Roach Crossing Gmail of the stuff that I need to send you, that would be very helpful for me because it's easy for me to transcript stuff off of emails onto my shipping rosters. So, exotic wilderness. So the black hissers, I actually have had them without heat for, I don't know, for a fair amount of time. Maybe last year I put them on heat for a little bit and then I took them off. But due to some, and also TJ, thank you for being willing to do that. It just makes things a lot easier for me. I appreciate your time and effort. Anyways, exotic wilderness. Due to racks getting rearranged and new racks being put up and things getting shuffled around, I was actually able to. I decided to put the black hissers on heat maybe 3 weeks ago, and I have a good group of it. Basically, ended up being mostly adults that were in the colony or sub-adults over the last couple of weeks. There was one order I sold mixed nymphs, and I think all sub-adults went out because that's all that I had. But any day now should have a gigantic bloom of black hissers. And TJ and I have been going back and forth on whether or not they're actually granadieri. And then there's the whole thing about whether or not granadieri. And it's a gigantic, huge, colossal mess, basically, that we've been waiting for there to be some decisive movement on for a couple decades now, basically, and it sounds like maybe within the next couple of years there will be some answers as to what is what. But regardless, that entity will hopefully be available very soon and in large numbers. So I think actually now I have all the hissers on supplemental heat, just because adding heat to stuff is very easy to do right now. And when I heat one container, oh, congrats, TJ. I haven't checked. I can't remember if I received any adults with the Rustica that I got. but I wouldn't be surprised if there was an adult female in there, if there were babies now, because as we all know, Rustica are very quick breeders, very easy to get going. It's just if you screw up a little bit for some period of time, they just crash through the floor. And hopefully, I will say I'll make the bold claim and say we're all past that now. But it's a good thing to keep in mind for people who are looking to get the species, because some stuff you can just keep it sky high density and neglect for a long time, like Argola and Pycnoscelis, without having catastrophic meltdowns that kill the whole colony. But Rhabdoblata and just Epilamprinae in general seems like if they run out of food, or if some pathogen emerges or whatever, you'll just lose them all. So definitely not as straightforward as something like a Pycnoscelis. So yeah. So again, Will and I were kind of hard pressed to find things to do. Yesterday, I think, was when we worked. And there's always stuff to do, like getting ready for the big orders and stuff that are going out. But finding sort of busy work and other things has been a little bit trickier lately because we've been so on top of everything. Exotic Wilderness says, I just started my Halloween History Colony and it's going great, and started my website to sell them. I'm hoping this summer I can sell them at a reptile expo. That's wonderful. They're it's weird. I feel like their popularity has declined in the last 2 years. There was a point where they were pretty common even at the local expo, and it's not really the best expo for bugs. So I don't know what that means. They still sell well on my site, but it's interesting how trends sort of come and go. I'm trying to think if there were ever any other trends. Bursatria used to be a lot more popular. I don't know, circa 2013, 2014, and now they definitely have declined in popularity for whatever reasons. Trying to think of things that have increased in popularity, notably Cranifer always do well. Things that have really gone up. Interest in other hissers is pretty high. Things that aren't Elliptorhina, which is surprising because when I got into roaches, everybody wanted Elliptorhina Chopardi because of they're hissers but tiny, and that was a really appealing gimmick about them to a lot of people. So they were very much so in demand and pretty commonly available as well. And now I don't know anybody else who's keeping dwarf hissers other than Dan Greiner, but Dan's got a lot of hissers in general, so I don't really necessarily count him. Yeah, Exotic Wilderness also says, I just also want to see the experience of an expo since I won't only be selling. Yeah, depending on what expo you go to, you can have a very good experience, or it could be kind of a letdown. I actually have a funny story about this. Going to my first expo sophomore year of high school. What year would that be? 2007? 2007, I think. And I didn't know that there was a local expo, the one that I vend at to this day. And I had, I don't know, Facebook wasn't the place to really look this sort of stuff up. I had to Google it, and it wasn't very straightforward. So looking up Michigan reptile shows or something. And the one that I actually found was one in Ionia, Michigan. And I was like, wow, there's a reptile show in Michigan. This is so amazing. This is so great. And I pestered the crap out of my parents to take me to it. And my dad and I actually ended up booking it. It was like a weekend thing we went on. I think we drove out there because it's a bit of a drive away. We drove out there on a Friday and spent the night, or Friday morning, spent the night, and then the show was the next day. It was actually a really, really great experience because The day before, actually, that area was hit by tornadoes and stuff, and so this whole situation where my dad and I didn't have bathing suits because we didn't know the hotel had a hot tub and pool, and so we drove out to a Meijer to buy bathing suits, and we got there and the weather just turned awful, and we got our bathing suits and they were on sale for like $1, and I still have the bathing suit to this day. It is my my singular bathing suit, and everybody had to come to the front of the store, and the weather was just horrible. It was just raining so hard. I think it's probably the hardest I've ever seen it rain without hail. And then when it died down a little bit, there was a break. They let people leave the store, and then we got in the car and drove through the pouring rain. And that was before smartphones too. So my dad would have had to ask. He probably would have asked the hotel for directions, and they would have given him. So we had to drive back basically blind to get back to the hotel. And had a nice night, in the pool and stuff. Anyway, so we go to the expo the next day, and I'm expecting this huge thing on par with, I was imagining what would later be my experience with like the Tinley Park Expo, where it's just like this vast expanse of stuff. Uh, Actually, there's a very important part of this that I need to go back and note. But anyways, and so we get to this place, and it's like an old farm building, like a big barn or something. And there's maybe, I don't know, I want to say maybe 30 vendors, very generous spacing between things. And I just sort of got in and I was very underwhelmed. I think the things that were most memorable to me there was somebody selling, the feeder guy, and they had feeder chicks that they were uh, selling for monitors or whatever. And I thought that was interesting because I wasn't used to seeing chickens for sale places before. I'd never been to a Tractor Supply. And I ended up actually got a bearded dragon from there that ended up, I think the beardy I have now I think that's their grandson. So yeah, I guess it was a good show overall because I still have part of that experience in my life to this day. Well, the other interesting thing there, I mean, there weren't any roaches. I mean, maybe somebody had hissers, and they wouldn't have even had dubias at that point. But there was a guy there with a bunch of weird amphibians, a bunch of weird frogs. I've never seen anybody with quite an assemblage of frogs. And there was only one at his table of this, and I remember like seeing it was a rana, if that's even a valid genus or whatever the species ended up being. It was some sort of um, rana from Australia, and I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh, that's a ronid from Australia." And now I think, today I think, the hell did he get that? Because like I have never seen anything like that pop up anywhere. Nobody's. And I mean, it must have been smuggled in unless he had like a zoo contact or something. But it was just so strange to just see like just the one of this weird like Rana-esque frog from Australia that this guy had. So, anyways, the big turnaround here was actually that my dad and I booked this whole weekend at this big expo that I thought, and then my mom through whatever channels a month before, because we went in August, I think. Yeah, it would have been August, or because I would have had school after that. We went in August, and in July, my mom, after we'd planned out this huge weekend excursion to go to this other show, she's like, "Hey Kyle, there's a reptile show right by our house. It's like only like 20 minutes away or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So we went there one day, and that was where I had my first show experience, where I was just blown away by everything that was going on. Um, so yeah, it's a great experience. Your first expo vending, especially if vending goes well, but just going and seeing everything that everybody's got. I will be honest and say that the experience has been kind of dulled down for me because of, and for a lot of people, I would assume because of online shopping. You can go to like Underground Reptiles and see a billion different things that you could throw your money at. But of course, you save on shipping, and you get to see if the animals are dying or not in person. So that's the advantages there. But still, Tinley's always impressive because of the sheer volume of stuff. There are not any strictly insect expos in the United States, and this is or invertebrate expos, and that's not entirely attributable to the massive gray area that a lot of invertebrates fall into, and that'll probably change in the next 20, 30 years. But so it's the closest you get. I don't know if there's like a tarantula convention or something like that. I think that they did that at Tinley one year. There's a group of vendors who kind of they didn't start their own expo, so they basically had like a mini event at Tinley for the tarantula and arachnid salespeople. So, what's the last roach I bought at a show? I did buy some. Halloween hissers at a show, like a year and a half ago or something like that, because I wanted to bump up the count. Maybe even 2 years ago at this point. So I wanted to bump up the numbers, and they were pure. I think they could probably trace that they got them from me. So, I can't remember the last time I acquired a new species at a new species of roach at a show, though. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. So, but anyways, thinking of anything else that may be up. I feel like I had some other point to bring up. Just gaze behind me and see what's going on with stuff. Cognia colony is doing well. A lot of the adults are dying, as they tend to do. They're not the longest lived things. And I think the expedited death might actually be because they're successfully consummating their existence. So I'd imagine that by the end of the month, I'll have a nice colony of the Cognia going. Anything else going on in here of utmost importance? Not particularly. I mean, I haven't really gotten any new. I don't want to speak too soon on this. Any new roaches in the last couple of weeks? I did get a bunch of isopods in this week from multiple people, from Carlos and Derek Nighthouse. One of these days he'll tell me how to pronounce it. So scrambled and put all those into breeding bins. It was a very art and a science thing of just getting everything set up as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Will and I did maintenance on over, I want to say 200 isopod bins in a little over 2 hours. So I'm quite satisfied with how that's gone. I should be getting some new roaches soon. Yes, you're right, TJ. But also from going collecting in Alabama in a couple of weeks to get some big numbers of some Parcoblata that I consistently flail around with. I feel like I really want to get like subadults or adults. There'll probably be subadults for them down there. And just, the numbers game of just getting that big giant F1 and then sort of letting them filter themselves out for the F2 to not have diapause or be more adapted to the conditions that I give them and whatnot. Exotic wilderness. Also, since you probably vented at expos, you have to pay to sell them. Yes, you have to buy your table, which can be a couple $100 at somewhere like Tinley or at the local show. When I started vending, I think it was $25 if you prepaid, $30 if you paid at the door. And now it's been bumped all the way up to $40, just inflation and whatever else is going on with the show running. So if you intend to vend at an expo, it would be a good idea to contact them and see if they have tables available, and also see if you can pay ahead of time for either the discount or just so that you have a table. So anything else? Finally put away all my Phrynis white eye, which I've kind of been silently obsessing over the last couple months, because who knows when imports are going to run dry on certain things. And certainly whip spiders are one of those things where there are precedents for things being everywhere and then being nowhere. So I have 5 Phrynis white eye. I think at the next show next weekend, if there are more, I'll probably pick them up. And actually, Alan found a pair of Phrynis species mixed in with the Phrynis that have been imported. He told me that there's a couple that are getting distributed all mixed in with the white eye. So snag that for Kai, snag that for Alan. It's currently in my possession until I drive down to see Alan. So there's a pair, other stuff floating around. It's always good to check and see when stuff gets imported and make sure that it is what it is, because you can find some nice goodies in there sometimes. Do you breed any other insects other than roaches? Yes. Many, 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 many other insects. You can sort through them on the site with the what tab? For sale, other invertebrates. There's also the mantids, which are facetiously positioned right below the roaches tab. But the other invertebrates has a bunch of other stuff there. Trying to think. Found some larvae in my Nyctoporus carinata. What Nyctoporus is? Oh yeah, I think you told me about that, TJ. That's wonderful. I have a question for you, and I can't remember the Latin. Canibia, was it Canibia? The little I think you called them the blueberry darklings. I just pulled them out of the cold room and put them at the normal bug room temperature yesterday, I think it was. Do you think that was long enough for them to get chilled? I mean, it was in the probably low 50s in that room. Yeah, Canibius, that was it. So I pulled them out already. I can always throw them back in if you don't think it's long enough to break their diapause. But yeah, so I pulled them out. Those aren't the huckleberries. What was the common name that you gave them then? They do have an interesting smell. Hello, Shane Madden. Good to see you. I can't remember. I don't know how to describe it though, but they do have an interesting smell when you annoy them. Oh, I found larvae in their bin the other day. Okay, cool. So I guess this should be good. I'll just sit on my hands and wait for larvae to pop up. Surprisingly, I have a lot of darklings that I'm doing that with right now. There was that Eleodes from Bylus that I have just sort of been breeding in their little cup. Eleodes. TJ, I think you identified it already. And it's one of those elongated ones. It might be Longicalis. That may actually be it. But they were sort of spitting out larvae in the crappy accommodations I had. I didn't know if I wanted to breed them, and you probably notice new adults before you find larvae. Yeah, that's how it was with the small darklings in the Cottonus container. Is I have only noticed the larvae of those and those small orange beetles when working in the substrate. And I, taking out chunks of substrate when I was like picking around for web spinners to isolate. And if I, pick substrate out, put in a sorting container, shifted it around, and then checked back in a couple of minutes, I would see larvae from presumably the darklings and that other beetle roaming around, but you can't really find them just picking through the substrate. So yeah, Eleodes longicalis is producing a lot of larvae. I actually think I saw one try to form a pupal cell in the 32-ounce cup that I moved them into, which is very unfortunate because that's not going to work. But I need to figure out a consistent way to get Eleodes pupation for the larger species. I have a bunch of Spinipes Macrura that I pulled to a 16-quart bin, and I think the sand has gotten a little dry and some of the pupal cells are collapsing, but I don't want to risk digging around to see if the larvae are successfully pupating. And I have 2 pairs that he closed. I'm happy with that, with the old technique, with the really crappy heavy clay setup. So I'm fine with that, and I still have 1.2 of the original adults, and they're still producing larvae. So I'm not too concerned. But I would really like to get a higher pupation rate in communal setups with larger darklings. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do that without with being able to reuse containers without mixing up different species and localities and subspecies. I need to find some way to do that. It's a space commitment and then a brain power commitment to get something standardized for all of them. So, but anyways, the longicalis are they're producing larvae, and maybe I didn't see myself breeding them, but if that one was forming a pupal cell, maybe they won't need to be cooled, and that would be fine. It'll just be like the spinipes, I guess then. And I got the ventricosa spinipes, ventricosa from Oren. They are very distinct with from the spinipes in person with the punctations. So can confirm that they're different things in person. And I got another Eleotes that was very easy from Oren. I bred them before, and I got rid of them because I just had colonies of darklings and they would burn out. And it's just how things were when I lived with my parents. Subnitans, I think it is. Yeah, subnitans. So just got a pair of those. Yes, the ones from Oren, the Eleotes subnitans. So those I remember being very easy. So I'll just throw them in my Embaphion and small Eleotes enclosure styles, and I think that'll be fine. A species that I really miss keeping that did very well for me and was very unique, and I'm going to look it up now. So I used to have them on the site listed too because I was confident that I could keep them going, and obviously that was misplaced. Eleotes gorii. I would like to keep those again if they ever pop up anywhere. I recall them being also very easy, and they would probably do well in the current setups. So Eleotes gorii would be nice. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else is on that shelf, on the beetle shelf. Brandon is supposed to move out to an apartment or a house or something by around June. And I gave both Brandon and Will racks, and Will eventually moved his rack home. Actually, Will was coming over here less frequently. He decided to move his rack home, so all of his stuff is now at his apartment. But Brandon's stuff is here on the rack that I gave him, and I told Will the second he moved the stuff off is like the second you take this stuff. The second you take this stuff away, this rack is getting loaded with something. He's like, I know. So when Brandon moves, his rack will immediately be infested with probably beetles. I might even make that the designated darkling beetle rack. So get another fridge for cooling stuff when needed. So, but yeah, currently it's just got, oh my God, to me, it's a obsessive compulsive nightmare because of the way that I've tried to make sense of the containers I have on there and the organization, but it's just got all stuff shoved onto there as best as possible, as accommodated as best as possible. So it makes me nervous thinking about where I have to move everything off of that rack, but it's fine. It's fine. So, and yeah, I'm trying to think. Used to have a big gorii colony, but lasts no more. And TJ says no one seems to keep gorii anymore. Yeah, I figured. And also, I had said before that I thought that I got tribulus going again, and I do still need to check on them again. But I'm pretty sure that I just miscounted the adults that I put into that colony because I thought I had 3.1 or 2.1, and the female died soon after setting them up, which isn't a death sentence for some of those things that will just crank out eggs. But I think and then I saw an adult male, what I thought was an adult male that had just closed, and I got really excited. I don't I'm starting to think I miscounted and that I actually put 3.1 or 4.1 into that container. So unfortunately, Tribulus may be lost as well. So and doesn't there's not a lot of it's very difficult to find all the people who keep darklings or even bother to keep darklings in a consistent producing colony. A lot of people just get people who tend to get multiple species tend to get them just to have a communal enclosure for the adults and not even worry about breeding, which is fine. But and then there are the people who are very serious about breeding. And actually, there's been a very large uptick in the interest in the darklings that I've listed on the site, especially the Ambaphion muricatum. And so, and I guess the contusum too, but I've been kind of stingy with those. Like I think I have them listed as available or contact for availability, but people who contact me like, oh yeah, they're available in a couple weeks, and I'm just sort of like buying as much time to let the adults that emerge produce as many larvae as possible. I think by now we're completely good though, because on the February 23rd, I found a good number of small larvae in there. So by now it's probably swamped with them. But anyways, I think Darkling hobby has a lot of potential because people already love blue death fainters, and just thinking about adding a bunch of it's a nightmare for us folks who want to keep pure colonies of stuff and not go crazy. But it's I can see why it's very appealing to very casual keepers, is because you could just have a bunch of unique looking beetles that are relatively active, that need barely any care, and it's like a fish tank, but without the fish and without the water changes and without the light and without the heater and without the having to actually care about feeding them food. So yeah, if anybody finds Gorii available again, or if we ever end up getting them from somebody again, that would be really nice. I do have an East Texas contact. He had talked about he had talked about going to West Texas specifically to collect darklings. So there's a chance that with this upcoming season that he'll be able to collect some really cool Aliotes from Western Texas. So we can be hopeful. See what happens. I'm currently on the list for getting some large groups of different Asbolus species. It's just a matter of them coming out in the wild, or whoever going out and collecting them. So throw my hat in the ring with formally breeding a bunch of Asbolus and trying to mass rear them. I don't want to do onesie twosie success. I want to be able to get big, consistent number results out of things. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that they'd find Gorii. I haven't seen them when we've driven through Texas, but they may not be a late summer species as we usually encounter when we're out there. And I won't be spending much time in Texas this year. Scratch that. Probably on the way back from Arizona. It's dependent. There's a bunch of moving parts in the plan, and things are very dependent on how other things happen or get planned out. The only things that I know with absolute certainty is that I'll be going to Cave Creek Canyon for at least 3 days in August, in early mid-August, and that I will be going to Yuma for at least one evening/night after going to Cave Creek. Oh, it could be before. It could hit Yuma up and then have to drive all the way back to Cave Creek Canyon and then wrap up the trip there before heading to wherever. But there is a spot for a lot of things that I want to hit that's in El Paso. And so heading back very well could have to route to do that, because it would be very much so worth the time and effort. So but that spot in El Paso had a ton of different darklings, and there's one there. It's really, really cool. I swear we've seen it in Arizona too. It's not an Aliotes, and it's very large, TJ, I'm sure that you know what genus I'm talking about, and the pronotum and the elytra are very uniquely structured. And I want to say they have a bluish color to them. They're not as bolus. It's not as bolus. Um, yeah, we found Aranavega in El Paso. I haven't found a Remoblata, but Yuma has a good chance of having a Remoblata. But what I really want from Yuma are there's a native fire brat there, which I found before, and I didn't realize they were native. So I really want those, really, really badly. The Aranavega from Yuma are gigantic, almost a Polyphaga aegyptiaca size. So I want those. Stenomorpha opaca. Let's see if that's. Yeah, that's the general shape, but what I'm thinking of is larger. I think that's the tribe, though. I think. Seems about right for the tribe, or just for the genus being Stenomorpha. Yeah, subgenus Acidina. Yeah, that seems about right. I'm like pulled it up on Bug Guide. I'm just gonna do a quick check of that subfamily and see if anything else really ticks the box. It's not Cryptoglossinae. Yeah, that you're probably right, as I suspected, TJ. I think it's a Stenomorpha species then, but they're very large, they're very bulky, and they're pretty common at this one spot in Phylolithus elatus. I bet Alan would know exactly what I'm thinking of too. No, I don't think it's Phylolithus. I don't think it's that. The Stenomorpha is definitely more fitting. Specifically, subgenus Acidina. It may very well be Stenomorpha confluens, unless let me check the range before I sound like an idiot. So, I'm pretty much an idiot. But anyways, I think we've got it. I think genus. I think the genus Stenomorpha is a good jumping point there. Anyway, so those are there, and they're very common from past experiences. So Yuma also has as bolus. There's varicosis there. It's just the time of year I'm going isn't going to have a lot of them unless it magically rains. And I would also like to. I'll be getting Arizona hunting, fishing, whatever wildlife license thing because there is a species of horn lizard in Yuma that's really, really cool, very, very similar to the protected one, which I think is the longhorned horn lizard. What's the genus of Phrynosoma? We thought that's what we had found was the protected ones at first, but the horn structure is different and the markings are different, etc. They don't really kind of find a. There's an Arizona page that had all these. Why is this saying me the Viagra site? Anyways, the species that I want that is not protected, or at least was not protected the last time that we were there, is Phrynosoma Good's horned lizard, and they did exceptional for me just eating dubia roaches. Anyways, isn't Aranavega darwini supposed to be really tiny? I thought that there was a really tiny species from California, which Yuma's almost basically California. But I thought there was a really, really tiny species of Aranavega. I could have swore it was darwini, or at least that's what the murmurs used to be back in the day. I think who had that? Who had those? There's a guy on Arachnoboards. He may still be there. He used to have a scolopendra of some sort as his avatar. I want his username was like one word that I think was a genus. It um might have been like his username may have been scolopendra or something. He was the creator of the scabies Southern Carolina arthropod something bugs and invertebrates society or whatever it was. Anyways, he had collected them and sent this is ancient history. This is like 2008, 2009 maybe. He sent me these Aranavega that he had collected from underneath some stone in the middle of nowhere, and the adult male was the thing was so tiny, and I couldn't get them to all emerge at the same time. And part of it was the inexperience, but I did give them a good go. I kept them in a really tiny enclosure too. So in a way, with the schedule that I was taking care of them on, it was actually a really good chance of getting them all to merge at the same time. But I think that the male dried out quickly. The male was barely over a centimeter of whatever that species was he collected in California. And I had pictures of it, and somebody had tentatively identified it as Aranavega darwini, but that was before Heidi did all of her stuff and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it was a stupidly tiny Aranavega. It's the smallest one I've ever seen, actually. And the adult female was a little bit smaller than that, even. I remember them being very pretty roaches. I remember the adult male being a bluish gray and the pronotum being sort of like a reddish purpley color, maybe even the center of the pronotum. Yeah, then maybe again it was just the hearsay back in the day. But I mean, you can always try and identify this from the description. There may even be a picture that I put on Roach forums somewhere. But anyways, there's the big ones from Yuma. And I'm gonna have to beg Ben to come along with me because he's the one who found the pair originally. I cannot find those things. Oh, and patch nose snakes, another one that I would like to get once I have the Arizona license thing. It would be funny if those ones that I had were undescribed and are still undescribed. Because they were tiny. Again, the adult male could have been barely at or barely over a centimeter. So it was a real blast from the past. That would have been right around the time that I was trying to keep those Formosan sand roaches too. What else did we lose from that? We've had discussions on what's been lost before. Yeah, I mean that was a real wild west times of roaches. The people who had the most, I think, different species was probably Matt K. Until I don't know what happened to Matt. He used to have a lot of good stuff, very much so ahead of his time. And who's the guy who was Banshee the Pirate? Is this thing not Dave Graham? Something. He lives in Texas. Ty Randall knows him too. Graham Kriglow still has Patchy the Pirate as his little avatar on his Gmail. But he apparently is still around and still keeps some various inverts. But yeah, so yeah, those are bizarre days. I remember the first group of Oxyhaloa that I got from Matt K. They were like $20 each or something crazy, or maybe $10 each, something crazy like that. And thinking back, I kept them completely wrong, which is why they didn't do well. But also thinking back, pretty sure I received all adult males. So no harm done, Matt K. If you ever end up watching this stream, no harm done. It was a different time, but it's fun to reflect on those things. So, where were those tiny Aranavega collected from? Somewhere in California. Somewhere I would assume in Southern California, because again, this person Galapagos. Galapagos was the person I'm pretty sure who sent me those Aranavega. Galapagos on arachno boards, and so wherever he would have found them, which I think was in Southern California. So, and I remember him saying it was in a very desolate place. They were all under a rock or something like that. Not Baja California, though. It was on California proper, California, U.S. territory, states, California. Speaking of which, I do have another contact in California. I don't know if he wishes to be named, and I obviously hesitate to name sources for various things because people like their privacy, etc. But he sent me some Aranavega last year. I screwed up over the summer by being a big dum-dum and not setting them up properly and putting the effort into keeping them alive. Fortunately, I kind of salvaged things because I got 2 nymphs to live, and I thought they were a pair. I haven't checked on them since. Hopefully they are a pair because that would save me a lot of time and money in pestering him. But anyways, he may be able to collect more. It's just going to cost me a lot to have him go out and find them again if he even can from this locality. So yeah, if there's a curse, really there is with California Aranavega. Nobody really. TJ, you're in the loop right now, but I don't think anybody's gotten a culture of Aranavega from California going either. They can't find enough of them. They don't want to go find them. They can't find them, or they get them and they can't get them to reproduce because they don't know the husbandry, or they don't get a decent sex ratio and size ratio and whatnot. I mean, the species could range further. No doubt, Aranavega are undersampled through most of their range for some species. And no, Aranavega from California are totally cursed. Yeah, so it would be nice if that ended up being a pair because the females, the one that was for sure female, I didn't want to stress them out by fumbling with them too much. The one that's for sure female was larger than the one that I didn't fumble around with. But I remember, yep, this is a female. We're good here. So, and surprisingly, something about their color reminds me, and this is another reason why I really, really want them. At least the nymph, something about the nymph color really reminds me of heterogamotes, because heterogamotes, the coloration is very beautiful. It's very beautiful. Heterogamotes. Very beautiful roach, and if I had a colony of them, they would definitely be in my top 3 favorites. But yeah, how heterogamotes have this sort of like the colors concentrated on the center of the individual when seen dorsally, the center of the thorax and the center of the abdomen, and it's got a sort of an edging of the lighter color, and it just makes it really cool. It looks like an ember, or a sun, or like a meteorite hurtling towards the planet. Is really what it looks like to me. And these Aranavega from California that I have the nymphs are very similar to that with their patterning and whatnot. Received 2 nymphs from the Algodones Dunes in California years ago, and they were both females, which sucks since they were so pretty. All subsequent attempts to get some from California have ended in said California collectors either never finding them or just straight up go. If anybody here watching this is from California, or if anybody knows anybody else from California, etc., something about California bug collectors. I will give him this grace, this person that I'm talking to, because he's busy and he did come through a couple times on some things. And Ben used to live in California, and Ben would find stuff regularly, and now Ben, I don't know what you're up to right now, but it seems like you put a lot of bug projects in the back burner, which is fine. But anyways, absolving these 2 individuals who know each other, all California people, you just won't go and catch bugs. Just go catch bugs. We want the bugs you find. And I don't understand why it's so difficult to get them to catch things or so difficult to find things. People will post pictures of swarms of something from California, and then you'll contact them and they'll say they'll get it, and you'll just never hear from them again. I have never been ghosted by as many collectors and hobbyists from anywhere. Yes, and I know. Is it all going on, or is it just something else? I don't know. Is something maybe something else in the air? Maybe it's all the smog in LA or whatever. I don't know what it is, but just Californians, we love you. We want your bugs. We want your bugs because a lot of them will probably be extinct as the urban creep and suburban destruction of your xeric intended habitat is furthered. So you need to get us these Aranavega stuff while you can. So, um, so yeah, and Oregon does Oregon have Aranavega? Southern Oregon? This does lead me into one other thing. We're at the 50-minute mark, and I think I'd said before that I wanted this to be a shorter stream. Actually wanting to be a shorter stream. I have some chores and whatnot to finish up today before my nice peaceful semi-off weekend. But anyways, speaking of Air Nevada and ranging north, one of the things that would affect the trip trajectory is there's a record on iNaturalist, and I'll find it now because I brought it up and I said it's on iNaturalist. Now I have to find it for everybody, which I love doing because I love sharing with everybody. There's a record on iNaturalist for, oh, that's a beautiful Aranavega. I bet it's in California too. This is a report of an Aranavega next to Syria. Oh my God. There's a report of an Aranavega. Oh, there's reports near Reno? What? I bet Aranavega range a lot further north than we imagine. Anyways, where I'm going with this, I gotta find this now. This Colorado. Oh, was it re-identified as something? It was definitely a Caridiid. Maybe, and it's actually near Remoblata. Actually, that'd be TJ or Allen who would have made that determination. No, the record's just gone. The record's just gone. How bizarre. Oh, no, this is it. This is it here. I found it. So, there's this record from... I gotta get closer to see where this is. Oh, it's from west of the Grand Canyon, west of the Grand Canyon, and near a lot of national forests. But this has to be one of the coolest Aranavega, maybe even one of the coolest roaches I've seen, because it's just like taking into account the context, the location, all this other stuff. I want to find this roach. I want to go to wherever is legal around here to collect. And a lot of this is there's a lot of national forest around. There's a campground right there too. I don't know if that's on the national forest or the national park land. I have to make sure before doing any of that stuff. But anyways, look at this beautiful roach, and it's one of the northernmost, at least in the central part of the range. Northernmost records for an Aranavega, and so they have it marked as being from the Grand Canyon. See, there's places next there, and I have to fight and dabble with, well, am I going to find it? How close do I have to be to the spot to have a good chance of finding more of this species? So, and there's a couple of places around there that have. That seem to have records, but I want it. I want to go collect. I want to get a culture going from this, and pending some other possible commitments and scenarios, it might be doable. And if that's the case, then on the way to Arizona, I would be going west to Utah, then south into Arizona. And of course, designating probably time at one or two spots to hopefully find these Aranavega. That's just its teneral coloration. There's a couple other ones here that that are not teneral from further west. There's if you scroll through the map from like the Lake Mead area and whatnot, There's another image of an adult that has this very beautiful smoky coloration of an adult male. And so, and there's all kinds of microevolutionary forces at work on these things that have very low dispersal. So, it could be a highly localized thing. It could be just a couple in this population are like this, kind of like the Aranavega booleana have. This one was identified as erratica, which is interesting because I think we have erratica in call. Yeah, TJ, we have an erratica. One of the ones we identified from my 10x, Apache, and erratica. And I don't think the erratica that I have adult males that look anything like that. Um, so, anyways, the bottom line is I need these Aranavega. I need whatever population or set of populations produces this adult male phenotype, which is just gorgeous. And so, yeah, and the pronotum is covered in clay dust, which is also interesting. And is it covered in dust, TJ? I think that might be the natural color because unless another option is that the pronotum has a different texturing than the wings, and that would explain why the dust, etc., sticks to that, but not to the wings in terms of like the setae or whatever. But if you look at the costal margins, the color of the costal margins seems to match the pronotum, which I would think. And that's fine if they're Apache, but because that looks a lot different from the Aranavega Apache that I have from Cave Creek or from Cave Creek Canyon. So I want them. I don't care if they're same species I already have. I want this phenotype in culture. So depending on, like I said, some other factors, I that may be incorporated in the trip at least a day on the way to other places in Arizona. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy summer with busy next couple months with the Alabama trip at the middle end of this month, and the Florida trip in early June / dead end of May, and then another Arizona trip this time in early to mid August, which is primarily for me to go and collect some holotypes of some stuff from Cave Creek Canyon. There's some springtails, possibly some pseudoscorpions, possibly some centipedes that I will be contributing specimens to various works to describe. Hopefully, at least one of the springtail I talked about before is definitely undescribed, but some of the other things are up in the air. Oh, look, it's the Russian bot. Oh, can't say that. It's the Ukrainian bot. um, yeah, the pronotum will be more hairy and pitted, so there's definitely dust stuck to it. The margins are likely light, and the middle is probably dark, the typical Aranavega male markings there. And the male Apache that I have don't have anywhere near that depth of color on the elytra, and that might just be a population thing. Could be the eclosure conditions, but I even all other things aside, I would love to have northern Aranavega. That's a very that gives Apache a gigantic range if that is actually still Apache up there, because all the way from Cave Creek Canyon down there, and it would make sense because it seems they might be a more montane species, and that would explain the presence around the Grand Canyon area. But yeah, you still give it a pretty good size range for species with limited dispersal and lots of geographic boundaries and unsuitable conditions between populations. Might be one of the dark Aranavega species in the Apache have a wide range, I believe. So, but yeah, again, the bottom line is, and also here's another thing. If you look, the legs are also that sort of lighter color. So I guess the only way to see if if the pronotum color is due to dust or if it's the intrinsic color is to go and collect some. And so there we go. So I have to go do it so that TJ and I can get uh, an answer that will satisfy both of us. So, but yeah, I would love to be able to collect more Aranavega species this summer, but uh, I have to pick and choose my battles. And with the thank you for the hat love. I'm still working on I'm waiting to hear back on them about making the Aaron Vega hat. I think they're less than enthusiastic about it, considering they're roaches of all things. But they have. I think we'll come to terms of some sort. But anyways, yeah, I would love to do another grand collecting Aaron Vega trip. But one, I'm quite content with what I have now. I would love to have eventually 3 to 5 times more localities or species of Aaron Vega than I currently have. But this summer and this trip is not the time for that. I would like to possibly get a Rima Blata, and I would like to get the Yuma Arena Vega, and I would like to maybe get these Utah ones. And depending on how my Floridensis colonies are doing, the Florida trip might end up being a lot of backtracking to collect some of these. What's the best Arena Vega beginner species? Says Some Eggs. Also, Some Eggs, good to see you again. I realize you slipped in. You're a mainstay of the chat, so it's hard for me to keep track of when you pop up in one specific stream or not. In my opinion, it would be Arena Vega Tonkawa. TJ, for the life of him, cannot get Tonkawa to consistently culture. So I vote for Tonkawa. Mount Ords are actually pretty good too in terms of hardiness. They're quite forgiving. Boliana somewhere in that mix of things. Cannot recommend Floridensis, considering I'm still hammering out the husbandry myself for good, reliable, consistent, zero crashes, zero problems at any point in culturing them. For some up and comers, the Cave Creek, the Apache from Cave Creek Canyon are pretty good. I don't know if 10X is going to end up being good long term. Not sure about Erratica either. A lot of this are the most finicky for sure. Yeah, Floridensis are. Which is interesting to me because again I have my crackpot-esque theory that Boliana is Floridensis' closest relative as far as Western Arena Vega go. So it's interesting that one thing would be more finicky than another that are so, in my opinion, so closely related. So, but yeah, and I've been saying also about doing the Arena Vega container stream, and I still have to upgrade, like I've been talking about doing, getting another webcam and maybe a boom mic for up the quality of the stream. So, but I'm not 100% sure if that's in the cards with all the stuff that I have coming to do, like the trip and the big order shipping and whatnot. So, I'm just going to leave that up in the air because I don't think it would be the most engaging for me to just poke through a bunch of Arena Vega containers without showing anything off. Maybe I could do a stream from my phone. I do want to do that in the summer because I will hopefully eventually move the stream outside and do, when the yard's looking good. Is that a deer or a person? It's a deer. It's gonna be. When the yard's looking good, do streams from outside and maybe even have a couple cheeky streams where we I catch bugs and we see what's living in my front yard because there's quite a bit of stuff. So yeah. So that I think we're gonna, as I said, wrap it up early again today. Hopefully by next week there'll be some more thrilling, exciting news and whatnot to discuss. Again, it's been just the grind of getting things done and getting on top of stuff lately, which has been wonderful because it's nice not having to worry about, I have to put these away. I have to go and do this maintenance. I have to do this. It's just more like, no, relax. It's done. Take your time. Enjoy the non-bug aspects of your life a little bit for once. As I look around the office full of bugs. I have also been tidying up the office a bit too. I still have a bunch of receipts to catalog and whatnot, but this thing's coming together. Again, the goal is to have what's up there down there, so I got to move that rung down and figure out positioning and whatnot. And eventually, that should be just a solid roach rack. So that's pretty neat. Should be pretty neat. A lot of ectobiates because they usually need a touch more care with my sort of setups and whatnot. But at least I'll stop losing them, losing cultures of them. So, with that being said, thank you for joining, everybody. Maybe the next stream we'll do a giveaway. I'll have to make that decision on the fly, or on the roach rather. Haha. But anyways, with that being said, everyone take care. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely week of spring weather moving in. At least it is here. And may your cultures be ever bountiful.